Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 15 Glitch in the Matrix, paranormal, and creepy stories for you. I think just one creepy story. We'll get to it. Case file number 3152, written by Das Weaver, Phil's Firebird, and the Fractured Timeline. A month ago, I experienced a glitch that was both so esoteric and so trivial that even my best friend thought I was out of my mind. I'm going to slant this towards people who don't give a flying fluck about vintage electric guitars, so if you're a guitar nerd, bear with me. The guitar is a 63 Gibson Firebird 7 in cardinal red, and the artist is Phil Manzanera of Roxy Music. And I own a 63 FB3, and it sucks dog balls, and so has every Firebird I've ever played. I have lusted after a specific guitar, played by a specific guitar player, for half a century. I know every detail of this guitar. I've been obsessed with it since I was 14 years old. It is gorgeous, it is iconic, and dear God, I have wanted it. I would have killed for this guitar, even though I know the actual guitar is actually a terrible guitar in terms of ergonomics. Somewhat less than a year ago, I had an opportunity to buy a Gibson custom shop reproduction of that guitar. It wasn't exact, it was a reproduction of a 64, not a 63. Either way, a real one would cost close to $250,000. It was expensive as crap, but I had the cash, and fluck me, I've wanted it for half a flucking century. The catch? And this is important. It was a reproduction of a 64, again, not a 63, a 64. I've known exactly what guitar Phil Manzanera has played since I was 14, a 1963 Gibson Firebird 7 in cardinal red. So, I got the guitar. It's awesome, except for some guitar esoterica that you don't care about, and the fact that the headstock is all body color. It's a 64, not a 63, so there are differences, but Gibson doesn't make a reproduction of a 1963. As far as I've known, for half a century, all Gibson Firebirds have the raised portion in the middle of the headstock colored black, and Phil Manzanera's was the same, cardinal red with the raised headstock portion black. This sucker has the raised center portion cardinal red like the body, so not exactly like Phil's. Whatever, I'm a little disappointed, but this is pretty much the guitar I have lusted after my entire life, so I'm also pretty stoked either way. Now understand, I have both Phil Manzanera's memoir and his big disc set and book, 50 Years of Music, which has, as a centerfold, a picture of that very flucking guitar. And in both, every picture of this guitar has the black on the raised portion of the headstock. So a month or so ago, I woke up and did my usual Saturday YouTube crawl, and Phil made a new video talking about this guitar. And here's the important glitch part. In this video, his Firebird is exactly like mine. I mean exactly. He talks about how it's a 64 and how he got it, etc., because it's an awesome story. I freak the fluck out and go back to all the photos I have of his Firebird, including him with his Firebird, and they're all exactly like mine now. Exactly. They're now all a 64, with the headstock body color just like mine. Just like the one I was disappointed with because it wasn't exactly like Phil's. I have no explanation. There's no flucking way in hell, after being obsessed with this guitar for half a flucking century, I wouldn't know in my bones every detail of it. So, I have no explanation. I spent $8,000 on a guitar that was not exactly like my idol's, but now it is. So glitch, yes, but I'm happy as a pig in crap anyways. I really like your passion in describing this glitch, mainly that you just love guitars and that's cool. I mean, having a passion like that in life is critical, I would say. You don't even have to be amazing at it, you just have to, what do you live for? For me it's food, so I have a passion for that, and cooking in a certain way. Although I'm no master chef or anything, I just enjoy eating really at the end of the day. But yeah, you got that tiny difference that indicates quantum immortality. You died and switched universes. And you still have that passion here. I think when you fuse with a different copy of yourself in a different universe, you still maintain the primary function. Because if the universe was very similar, there's only tiny differences, then the you in that universe would be very similar too. I do think there's a blending, but if you're both so close together, then it's not a big deal. The blending might lead to schizophrenia or dementia, maybe, in my view, as a possible reasoning for it, for why that happens, or even split personality, if you're mixed with a different version of yourself that is very different, so a universe very distant. The blending doesn't happen smoothly. There's jagged edges, you could say. Case file number 3153, written by Candy Red 1, Cursive in the Void. I had one glitch after all these years, and it was so pointless? Why? What does it mean? There has to be some meaning behind it. I have this plaid-like checkered multicolored little box with fabric covering the entire thing. It's about 4 inches by 3 inches and just opens and snaps shut. There was no writing or marks, just fabric. I had this new gold paint pen, and one day I decided to write my initials on it in pretty cursive letters. 3 letters. I made the first 2 touches, the J and R. I didn't like it that way, so I turned the box over and wrote my initials again with all the letters having a space, the same fancy cursive. It did look better. So I wrote my initials on both sides. I am 100% absolutely positive of this. The very next day, I go to grab the box from up on my closet shelf because I store some little earrings in it. I put it down with the rest of my stuff for the day, makeup and such, and as I set it down, something catches my eye. It's blank. There is no writing, no gold initials. I quickly flip it over, and there are the first set of 3 initials I wrote with the letters touching. I sat and turned that stupid little box over and over and over for I don't know how many times, just speechless. What the actual? I know I wrote on both sides, and it was just the day before. Why? I'm not remembering wrong. I know this is what I did, no doubts at all. It wasn't washed. It wasn't even anywhere anybody could have even touched it. My closet I keep locked. And why would anyone do that anyway? They couldn't have either, because it was a permanent paint pen with gold paint, not a marker. What does this mean? It is that much more creepy and unsettling, because it's so random too. Reality is just not the same to me after this. What else is happening we can't see or understand? I've had a lot of paranormal things happen throughout my life. I even saw a full-on ghost of a man once. Then years later I saw a demon, and many other strange things that were not of normal life. But for some reason, because this is so insignificant, I just can't. Case file number 3154, written by Baby Even the Losers, The Nightstand Pact. 3 related glitches. Worked in an art gallery for 6-hour-long shifts. I'd start a shift by dusting and end one by dusting again, as the front doors were always kept open to encourage foot traffic. There was always a thin layer of dust. I came in, my coworker left for the day, and I dusted. Customers came in about 30 minutes later and touched a display of less expensive sculptures, and the display needed to be reset. When I picked them up, they were covered in an even layer of thick dust. Not only like when I had dusted them 30 minutes before, but also as if no one had in a full day, just like when I got on shift. Full déjà vu as I redusted them. I was in a rush to get to work on time one morning, and knocked something off the nightstand, and of course, it fell behind the nightstand, and I'd have to move it if I wanted to get it. I didn't feel like dealing with it and said, "This is for future me to handle," and left. That night I was getting ready for bed and groaned at the idea of still having to move the nightstand. Except the knocked over item was back on the nightstand. I lived alone. Thank you, alternate timeline me. You were a solid girl. Searching for my son's missing glasses. He was in 5th grade and had always worn glasses and never lost them. I looked in the obvious places and eventually found some spares and sent him to school. Came home and tore his room up. They should have been, at worst, on the floor somewhere. He wore them to bed and set them on the nightstand every night. I start freaking losing it, because someone had to be messing with me. I was insane, lifting everything up, even stuff they couldn't possibly be behind. I pulled everything out of the closet like a nut, still nothing. put everything back and cleaned the room. Then I sat down on the bed and finally admitted defeat. I asked whichever being there is to help find lost things, help to find the glasses. I was atheist then. That's how far this pushed me. I stood up, turned around, and there they were, on top of the lamp. Not next to it, not behind it. I had already grabbed this thing aggressively to hold it up and show myself there wasn't a square inch I hadn't touched. The glasses were perched on top of the finial that holds the shade up, not hanging from the little bars that would have held them securely. On top of the weakest, wobbliest part that somehow supposedly held these glasses securely in place while I manhandled it. Case file number 3155, written by Strawberry Muffin 22. A Pebble of the Past. For some background context, this happened in 2019, but the story starts in the summer of 2017. So, summer of 2017, I was working at a dog kennel. I had these cute new earrings that were stud earrings with a rainbow gem on it. Very simple. One day, while I was at work, one of the dogs headbutted me in the ear, knocking the earring gem off, and it fell onto the cement. I picked it up inside because I was frustrated since I had just gotten the earrings, but I put it in my pocket to fix later. At the end of my shift that day, I took the earring post and gem out of my pocket and put it in the center console of my car, with the intention of fixing it later. Fast forward a week. I remembered the earring in my center console and went to get it so that I could fix it. When I opened the center console, it was gone. No trace. I looked in every crack and crevice, but I couldn't find it. This made me even more frustrated because now I couldn't even fix my own broken earring. I accepted defeat and moved on. Over the next 2 years, I carried on life as usual, thinking about the missing gem once or twice, but mostly just forgetting about the whole ordeal. It's important to note that in these 2 years, I cleaned my car out and, in winter of 2017, began vaping. I've quit since, so I don't want advice on that. If you know box vape mods, you know you have to regularly change the coils because they get burnt out over time, and I had been doing that regularly. So, fast forward to 2019. I'm driving while talking to a friend who's sitting in my passenger seat. He says something, and I open my mouth to respond, when I feel something fall out of my mouth and into my lap. Immediately I assume it's a tooth, since I have a massive fear of losing my teeth, and I pull over, silently praying I'm wrong. I pick the item out of my lap, and it's the missing earring gem. To this day, I have no idea how that happened, and I'm still absolutely baffled by it. To answer some common questions that people have asked me about this, yes, I am 100% sure it fell out of my mouth. I felt it in there the second before I opened my mouth. No, it was not previously in my mouth. Why and how would I have stored a missing gem in my mouth for 2 years? No, it was not lodged in my sinuses the whole time. The gem was about the size of a pebble, so I would have definitely felt it. No, there was nothing else in my lap or the car seat that I could have mistaken for the gem. I had cleaned my car a week before this happened, and I distinctly remember there being nothing else in my seat or lap that it could have been. No, it wasn't in my vape when I took a hit. It would have blocked the airflow, firstly, and secondly, I would have noticed since I had taken a hit of my vape a minute or two before opening my mouth to talk, and I didn't feel anything in my mouth. Plus, it would have been fully inhaled if it was in my vape, and I would have felt that too. A very unique DOP story, returning story, with the object reappearing in your mouth. Why not? It could reappear anywhere. Thankfully, it didn't reappear inside your body. Could that happen? What if you had a DOP event, you lost your earring, and then it reappeared inside your heart, or inside of an organ, or just floating in your blood? I mean, this would be too big for even your artery, but if it can appear in your mouth, it doesn't seem like there's any limit to where it can reappear. Well, maybe it does have to be empty space, even inside your mouth. There is a pocket of that, just atmosphere. So I guess maybe that is a limitation. I've never heard of an object appearing inside someone else. So hopefully that's a limit. Case file number 3156, written by Outside Exercise 4720. A Chill at Dusk. Grew up in the country, in a national forest. My older brother had a friend that lived half a mile away, so we'd often walk to meet him halfway at a creek before going back to his place or ours. One night, he's a little late, so we walk the second half to his place. We have a pizza and start the half-mile back to our house. It was just past dusk on a humid summer day, and as such, fog gathered off the ditches and, of course, the creek. As we got closer, I saw a little girl in a white dress hugging her knees on the bank. One of those blink and you'll miss it moments. As such, I didn't mention it, but it put a chill down my spine. We get to our driveway soon after, and my brother's friend blurts out, "Did any of you see that fucking girl?" We all saw her and said nothing. We freaked out, hurried back to the house, but we had to walk past when my brother's friend went home, so we got flashlights and looked for tracks or flattened grass. Nothing. Now the really strange part. That Christmas, my brother got a Ouija board. I knew he used it to torment me. As a little brother, I was suspicious of every trick and prank there was. Skeptical, obviously. Well, one day, we all asked the frequent nice spirit about the girl. Lost necklace, logger's daughter, drowned. We had found all sorts of logging antiques building our place. It hadn't been developed before, and we were actually only the second owner since it was logged. Spikes, broken saw blades, a stuck log sled buried in the mud, old brown glass bottles. We knew it was logged and that a camp was in the area, but families didn't follow loggers to the lumber camps. Whatever. Never read more into that story from the Ouija board. Years later, like in my 20s, I'm reading up about the logging industry in northern Wisconsin when I found a story about one of the men that bought up thousands of acres to log, Jacob Spies. I've been on Spies Lake, etc. I knew of the name and that he owned a mill. What I didn't know is that he traveled with his family to visit various camps, and on one such excursion, he lost his daughter. I found an article about the tragedy, but it didn't mention how. Out of curiosity, I looked it up and sure enough, our property was one of the areas he had purchased. I'm a highly rational person and take reasonable actions to explain events, but there are a few times where I never could, and this was one of them. Case file number 3157, written by Hold the Door, When Reality Missed the Frame. I live with my wife in a small apartment behind my parents' house. In front of both houses, there's a shared courtyard where we park. The yard narrows towards our private gate that leads to our door. I usually park closer to the street, and my wife parks directly in front of that gate. There's no space for two cars to move at the same time, and no blind spots. If her car is there, I can't miss it. Timeline: 1339. I go to the little laundry house, shared a space a bit away from the main houses, to put clothes in the washing machine. Our outdoor camera records me leaving the house with the laundry basket. The camera only shows our door area, not the yard or gate. 1342. My wife arrives home with our 10-month-old daughter. The camera records her coming from the opposite direction, the one that leads from the yard and gate, and entering the house, meaning she has already parked her car, taken the baby out, and crossed the yard. 1345. I come back from the laundry room. The camera records me passing in front of the door and walking toward the gate to go back to my car and head to work. I open the gate, step out, close it, and the yard is empty except for my car. My wife's car, which should be parked right in front of the gate, is not there. I remember this clearly because I walked in a straight line to my car. If her car had been there, I would have had to go around it. I got in my car and left for work. Minutes later, my wife texted me a photo of our baby sleeping in her crib. I assumed it was an old picture from earlier that morning, maybe from a short nap before lunch, so I replied asking if she had slept for long. My wife answered, "No, she just stayed asleep after I got home. I carried her in from the car still sleeping." I then asked when she got home, and she says, "Just before you left. I even thought it was strange that you didn't come back in to give me a kiss." When I got home, I checked the camera footage again. I left for the laundry at 1:39. My wife entered the house at 1:42. Me passing back in front of the door at 1:45. The timestamps are exact. The camera is Wi-Fi connected and synced. There's no other way into our property, no angle where I could have missed the car, and physically, 2 cars can't cross in that space. My wife says she parked in her usual spot and even noticed my car was still there when she arrived, but when I walked out, her car simply wasn't there. It's been bugging me all day. If it were a timing issue, a delayed video, or bad memory, I'd accept that. But the footage matches both our recollections perfectly. The only thing missing is her car. Case file number 3158, written by NC Fetcho. Lost, requested, returned. I dropped my phone in the living room, next to the couch. I heard it fall, didn't bother getting it at the time, and was reading a book. I got up to go outside, reached for my phone, and it was gone. Looked everywhere, even places it could not be. I asked politely for it back. I needed it for work the next day. Finally, I said, "You can have it for now, but I need it back before 11 a.m. Next morning, looked for it, around 10:30. I went across the street to the Quickie Mart, and when I was in my car, I looked at my phone holder. My phone has to be set a certain way in it so I can reach the button on the back, and said, "Man, I wish my phone would just appear there." Went in and came out of the store, said I really needed my phone to just appear in my phone holder. Back home at 10 minutes to 11, did one more look around, yelled, "Well, it's almost 11 a.m., where's my phone?" Went to the car, got in, and there it was, right in my holder in the car in the exact way I have to position it. And it was dead. I just took it aside to get my charger in total shock and said, "Thank you," and had a totally silent drive to work. I didn't even have a single thought. I tried to tell my friend at work what happened, and she said, "So, ghosts?" I don't even want to hear it. And that was the end of that. Case file number 3159, written by representative number 1787. $1,000 miracle in the driver's seat. About 3 years ago, I was working for a real estate company, and I lost my key to the building. Now, the deal was, if you lost the key, they had to replace all the locks and all the employee keys, and they would charge $1,000 to you for the inconvenience. Whether that was too much money or not is irrelevant. They wanted to deter people from losing keys. Anyway, my key was missing for a few weeks, colleagues let me in during the day, and I was given an ultimatum: find the key by tomorrow or you owe us money. So the next day, I go to get in my car and go to work. My car is parked in the garage in our house. I live in Australia, this is very normal. It's very secure. I open my door and realize I'd left my phone back on the kitchen bench. I shut my door, go get my phone. I came back to my car, I opened the door and sat in the middle of my seat is the key. Nobody was home, nobody could have put it there previously. It's my car, nobody else drives it, and I'd been driving it for weeks. I don't carry a bag, so it didn't fall out of anything. It was originally attached to my car key, so absolutely could have fallen off at any point, but that doesn't explain how it was just there, on my seat. I very loudly said, "Thank you," because I don't know, maybe it was a ghost or a glitch was watching or something. But I went to work and showed the office people my key and saved $1,000 in pain and suffering. Yeah, $1,000 for losing the key is definitely a deterrent. I would say excessive, but I guess if they have to change all the locks everywhere. Although that's kind of paranoid. I mean, unless the key is labeled with the business, there's no way, even if someone finds a key, they're not going to know what business it belongs to, what it unlocks. Same thing where I think most parents are like this. If they give their kid a key and they lose it, they have to change the locks. Like the criminals, they all know it's our house when they find it. I don't think they're going to know. Case file number 3160, written by Roxa, area code fear. When I was in high school, early high school, I'm sure, because I distinctly remember being too young to get in the car and leave, I started getting calls every time I was home alone. The supposed reasons for the calls were innocuous, but they were also different each time, despite the fact that they came from the same number. In about a 2-week span, my parents took my siblings and left me completely alone 3 or 4 times, and in each case, I would receive a call within 30 minutes asking to survey someone. The first time, the caller claimed to be with the CDC, and I answered honestly, telling them I couldn't participate because I was under 18. and also that there were no adults around that could answer in my stead. After hanging up, I realized what I had done, effectively telling them that I was a minor, home alone, and that the number had a local area code, which didn't make sense because The Walking Dead had taught me the CDC was in Atlanta. I locked all the doors and windows and spent the night upstairs. After that, I refused to answer, but the timing of the calls led me to believe that the house was being watched and that if I wasn't careful, I would be taken or something. I tried to call them back once, with my dad present, but I got an answering machine that said the number belonged to a cleaning company. After that 2-week span, I only received one more call from the number. It came during a family gathering, just as I finished telling my cousins about the strange calls I'd been getting. One of them took the phone and claimed that the number belonged to a business, and I never heard from the number again. I tried to point out how strange the timing of the calls was, but most people agreed it was just a prank caller. It may well have been, but even after all those years, that feeling of being watched is still a fear of mine. Case file number 3161, written by TalkieTalk33, Beneath Blarney Castle. First time ever telling this story publicly. We were college students touring Ireland, 1993, visiting Blarney Castle, in the late afternoon on a rainy day. A few friends and I decided to explore the dungeon prisons on a dare. Beneath the tower house, we found a dark, unlit labyrinth of underground passages and chambers. Mostly inaccessible, they were beyond where any normal person would ever want to go. As we ventured deeper within, the walls and ceiling closed in on us, and the tunnel got smaller and much, much darker. We couldn't see anything at all as we crouched and went further in. We eventually crept slowly on our hands and knees in total darkness until we found the chambers of what was the castle prison, and there were iron bars blocking our way. At that point, we turned around and made our way out of the tunnels. After a long, slow return back, I thought some light had entered the area because I could see the faint, pale white silhouette of one of my friends blocking the path in front of me, who had stopped for some reason. I called out to him, and he answered, but his voice came from much further away than what I saw in front of me. I cautiously reached out to touch the person in front of me, and my hand went through the figure. I froze as the figure quickly turned its upper body toward me and swung his ghostly head to look me in the eyes. 3 or 4 seconds went by before I was able to move. Someone ahead said something, and I realized I had to do something. So I continued on the path, moving directly through the ghost, my eyes to the wall to avoid looking at it. I quietly made my way out of the darkness and eventually emerged outside the castle to meet with my friends. Everyone laughed at the craziness of what we just did. I said nothing to no one about what I saw that day, and didn't tell the story for many years afterwards. Still gives me the chills to think about it. Honestly, I never believed in ghosts or spirits until that day. Okay, so this is a rare ghost story where you actually interact with the spirit, or at least you try to. Of course, your hand just passes right through it. Not many stories where the ghost or spirit passes through, or you pass through it intentionally, or even accidentally. And you didn't describe feeling cold or anything, so I wonder what's going on with that. I mean, it may be possible that those cold spots aren't always applicable. Maybe they relate to when the spirit is trying to siphon energy from you, but doesn't necessarily involve passing through them. Case file number 3162, written by Slide Practical, 8198. A Passport's Secret Journey. I traveled for work about a month ago, and used my passport card as identification to get through the TSA checkpoints at the airports. On my trip home, I showed my card at the checkpoint and then put it back in my purse with the intent of stashing it back in my wallet when I sat down, so I didn't hold up the line. I sat down at the gate and opened my purse, and my passport card was nowhere to be found. I checked my pockets, looked in every pocket in my purse, and nothing. So I went back to the checkpoint, thinking I must have dropped it and hoping it was turned in. Nope. When I got home, I dumped my purse out just to make sure I hadn't missed it. It wasn't there. As I was getting ready for bed, I noticed a little white envelope sitting in my dresser. My passport card. How did it get there? I didn't put it there. Okay, so this is a glitch where it's a DOP event, very common, but I just love it when they happen in a way that is almost impossible for any mundane explanation to exist, because you had to have the passport card to get through the TSA at the airport. There's no other way. You had to have it then, 100%. And then you didn't have it. Okay, well, if you only lost it, that could be explained. Maybe someone stole it from your purse, you were pickpocketed, or you just dropped it and someone took it and didn't report it. That is possible, but it returned to you. In an envelope too, which is weird. I wonder what entity decided to put it into a white envelope just for aesthetics or to make it grandiose as a return. I don't know, but the fact that it returned and that you had to have it initially, a perfect glitch, I'd say. Small but perfect. Case file number 3163, written by Glittering Trip 2176. A leaf that didn't land. I just got out of the shower and was getting ready for bed when I noticed a pimple had formed on my chin. I grabbed a sleeve of pimple patches and stuck a pimple patch onto my newly formed pimple. As I got to put the sleeve of pimple patches back into its pouch, it falls out of my hand. I watched the sleeve of patches fall, similar to how a leaf falls in autumn, sways back and forth before hitting the ground. My bathroom counter drawer was open, the one that holds all my skincare products. I watched with my own eyes a sleeve of pimple patches completely disappear right before hitting the drawer that holds my skincare. I emptied out the whole drawer that was opened, thinking it could have slid between my jars and bottles, and my eyes must have played a trick on me. Nope, no sleeve of pimple patches in sight. Then I looked around my bathroom, not very big, underneath the rug, in the trash can, behind the door, anywhere it could have fallen. Nothing. Case file number 3164, written by Fanny Fox. A tiny piece of impossible. So, I have this backpack I've had a good 7 years and traveled the world with. An Osprey Farpoint 40 liter. And this has 2 zips for the main space that opens all the way to the sides, so the bag can open out like a suitcase. About a year or so ago, I noticed one of the plastic zip pulls that's threaded onto the zips had come off and disappeared. It annoyed me because it now meant that zip had to stay in the farthest corner and I had to open the bag with one zip, which was annoying because you couldn't just open the bag a little bit at the top to put something in. You had to unzip it all the way, which meant putting it on the floor to do so, otherwise everything would fall out. Well, now, the missing zip pull is back. I went on a trip last weekend, and there it was. It makes no sense. The only plausible explanation is that if someone took their zip pull off their Osprey Farpoint and put it on mine, somehow, when I wasn't looking. Why would anyone do that? Case file number 3165, written by Hedgeberry, 5 strokes away. I almost drowned trying to swim across a lake as a kid. Middle of the day, busy lake, but most people were around the edges. It was about 0.5 miles across. I was younger, maybe 16. I swam out alone trying to cross it. Got to the middle and was running out of breath. I scanned all around to see if something was nearby, and the only thing I could see was a buoy about 20 strokes away. I couldn't make it, so I called for help. It was far enough away from the shore that no one could hear unless you shouted at the top of your lungs. There was a guy, though, suddenly, 5 strokes from me. He called out as soon as I said help. He was in the middle of the lake as well, and saved my life. I just don't understand how he happened to be there, and how I never saw him. He said he began swimming out to the middle as soon as I did, and said he was worried I wouldn't make it, which is just so crazy that he just happened to be there on purely intuition. I didn't hear or see him prior to him calling out, and I feel like there were multiple times I stopped to tread water and see how far from shore I was. My siblings also swam across a lake at the same time I was, but we were all in different parts. I was the only one who almost didn't make it, out of the 4 of us. It just doesn't make sense unless he was swimming underwater the whole time. Yeah, you could say it's possible someone was just trying to look out for you, a normal human being, but as you say, you paused for instances and you didn't see anyone else, unless you were talking about a lake that had massive waves, where they were obfuscating the view around you. but I presumably was relatively calm so you could see all around you. You would have noticed and heard someone swimming near you, near enough to save you. So again, unless, like you say, he was just swimming underwater the whole time, which would be weird unless he had a scuba mask or something, could have been a guardian angel, for sure. Case file number 3166, written by Nerdcore314. Oh, pie. They didn't blink. Back when I was delivering pizza in South Carolina, some of the driveways were long into the woods. At night, I turned into one of the driveways, not completely sure if I was at the correct address, because they were not labeled well. I drive up this driveway, and there is a truck blocking right where the driveway leads to the rest of the front yard, and I think I see people in this truck. So I assume they are waiting for me. I pull all the way up so my headlights are right in the windshield of this small truck, and there's an old man and lady in it. They do not move in the slightest. I'm waiting to see if they make any gesture that would indicate I'm at the correct place, but they never move an inch, not even to shield their eyes from my headlights. I stayed there for a few seconds, looking these two old people dead in the eyes as they just stare back as blankly as possible before I get creeped out and go to the next house over, which was the correct house. I thought for a second they could have been mannequins, but there's no way. I was looking at them too hard and for too long. Now time for the jokes of the day. I told my coworker the exciting news that my partner and I are expecting. She goes, "Oh, do you have a midwife?" I'm like, "No, she's actually pretty amazing." I paid $300 to rent a limousine, but that didn't include the driver. All that money and nothing to show for it. My Australian friend told me that he has a half-brother. I said, "Different dads?" He said, "No, shark attack." Brutal. The only trustworthy person to keep a secret is your husband. He can't repeat it, since he didn't listen in the first place. A student asked his teacher, "Mrs. Taiwan, is that really your last name?" She said, "Actually, it's my made-in name." Video up here, YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.